I'm going to kick off this series of Insider Daily interviews by speaking to Patrick Lucy, the Chief Business Officer of Phoenix, who is next to me on the stage here. Patrick, welcome.
Good morning, Dan.
We actually spoke almost exactly a year ago to the day at BIO in Boston. And, as a journalist, I've followed Phoenix for, pretty much ever since I got into this industry. And it's always good to see how your company's evolving. Last year, I believe we started off talking about the phase 3 data for your molecule PF708. What's the latest on that molecule?
Yeah, so PF708 is a teriparatide therapeutic equivalent to Forteo. And we filed that NDA in December of last year. And we have a PDUFA date of October 7th, 2019, so that'd be our lead product. And so right now we're in negotiations with FDA and look forward to hopefully an approval later this year.
And just remind me, it's classed as a biosimilar in Europe, but in the US it's not. It's an alternative to Forteo, Lilly's Forteo?
So it's a therapeutic equivalent 505(b)(2) in the U.S., but yes, ex-U.S. it's a biosimilar.
I guess there was a period when Phoenix was viewed perhaps as a biosimilar and a vaccine services firm. Is this still the case?
No, so Phoenix has gone through, I would say, 3 different evolutions in our history. So when we first started the company, we were a service and technology provider with our production platform. Then we evolved into a biosimilar developer and therapeutic equivalent developer with also a vaccine program. And then as of late, we're starting to pivot more towards novel biologics. I think the history of the platform, we look back and see where we were most successful, and where we were most successful was expressing alternative scaffolds, binding proteins, and those types of modalities. And so right now, here at the conference, we're looking for partners to co-develop or in-license novel molecules in disease areas that are reasonably small and that can be developed by a smaller to mid-sized biotech company.
So just stepping back there, the biosimilar side of things, I don't want to drag up the history on Phoenix and the Lucentis biosimilar, but are biosimilars any part of your strategy, or are you definitely moving on to, are you leaving those in the past?
Yeah, we do have a couple biosimilars in our pipeline that are paused currently. Currently looking for partners for our Lucentis biosimilar. But for now, the focus internally is primarily on co-development opportunities in novel biologics.
It's about 10 years since Phoenix span out of Dow Chemical. You've been going through this sort of evolution. Are you continuing evolving, or have you kind of found where your strategy is now? As you said, looking at difficult to manufacture molecules and bispecifics and such. Is this your full strategy, or are you going to continue evolving as your history continues?
Yeah, right now our focus is for our portfolio strategy is to focus on wholly owned novel molecules going forward, but also have a complement of co-development programs where our technology or our platform is uniquely enabling. So we currently have a partnership with Jazz Pharmaceuticals developing 2 ALL candidates, and that's a pure example of where our protein platform is uniquely enabling to those products. But we're currently seeking to add a few additional co-development programs while also looking for wholly owned in-licensed assets, again focused entirely on our platform.
I think in the past, Phoenix has been represented somewhat by the press and within the industry as a CMO or a CDMO. Is that still the case? Because the sort of deals that you're talking about seem to be more strategic partnerships than full-out service deals?
That's correct. So we are absolutely out of the CDMO space as a company. We strictly will focus on strategic relationships and co-development relationships with our platform, and focusing entirely on product development. So we've completely pivoted out of the service space. That was definitely a part of our history that enabled our team to get a lot of experience working with big and small biotech, seeing hundreds of different lead proteins, but now we're taking that institutional knowledge and deploying it on products of our own.
When it comes to these partnerships that you're forming, I know there's a few that are out there in the public domain, like with Jazz. How do you address, how do you select which partnerships fit Phoenix best?
Yeah, I think that the way we look at opportunities is the first threshold is our protein expression technology uniquely enabling. So is the customer or the partner dealing with a challenge that they can't overcome with other systems? And that puts us in an enabling scenario, which enables us to get significantly more economics in those deals, and we can be much more highly selective. So I think what our day-to-day balance is making sure that we have sufficient resources to advance our internal pipeline, but then fill in the gaps with partners' assets that we can also leverage the platform for.
How do you go about addressing your internal platform needs and your partnership needs? Is it kind of on a pivot, or do you have the capabilities for both and there's no real overlap?
Well, I think they're complementary. So we leverage the same team, the same platform, obviously, and the same infrastructure for our partnering programs or our wholly owned programs. But I think what we're trying to do is when our assets move into the clinic, that we can leverage the platform and actually monetize the platform and other opportunities. And that's what we've done with Jazz Pharmaceuticals. And we also have some additional partnerships that have not been announced yet.
I want to move onto your expression technology platform. And I guess the first thing I'd like to ask you is, I think it was described as a cornerstone of your company. Could you give us a kind of brief overview of the actual expression platform itself, maybe its history, and just a very quick layman's overview of how it works?
Sure. So when we came across this protein expression organism, it's based in Pseudomonas fluorescens. The name of the company is an acronym for Pseudomonas fluorescens enabled expression, and Dow Chemical was using it for industrial applications, so industrial enzymes. What we observed was an organism that was extremely powerful in heterologous protein expression. From there, we built a full platform around it using the genome. So we basically designed hundreds of host strain phenotypes based on that genome, mining that genome, and also looking for elements in the organism that we could overexpress to assist protein expression, or knockouts to take out proteases from the system, etc. So what we have is hundreds of host strains and plasmids that we look at in a combinatorial fashion through robotic screening, and can identify a production strain in 8 to 10 weeks from receipt of a gene. So basically the platform has 3 or 4 key elements to it. Basically the speed with which we can identify a production strain, high expression, soluble expression, and low cost manufacturing. So we use that for every product in our pipeline, and we also use it for each product that we have a co-development partnership on.
Why is the expression platform so suited to certain programs, so next generation antibodies and bispecifics, rather than whole length monoclonal antibodies, say?
Well, first, it's a prokaryotic system, so we don't focus on glycosylated proteins. I think the power of the platform is we don't look at a handful of strains when doing a protein expression evaluation. We'll look at 1,000 strains in parallel through combinatorial screening, so combining unique plasmids, unique host strain phenotypes, all in a robotic screening or a combinatorial approach. And what we've seen is when you look at 1,000 strains in parallel, you're going to find the ultimate strain for your protein of interest. So over the past 15 years, we've expressed about 170 lead proteins, and doing that in the first 12 weeks, we've identified a production strain 80% of the time. That can be efficient at manufacturing the protein of interest.
And so as industry progresses from monoclonal antibodies to next generation antibodies and bispecifics, are you seeing more and more demand for partnerships, and more interest in Phoenix itself?
Yeah, I think the advent of CAR T technologies is really creating a renaissance in bispecifics. And so we think that our platform is uniquely positioned to make these engineered proteins that essentially are marrying up a T cell to a tumor cell. So we are, as a company, looking for assets that are in that space and really trying to leverage or really ride the wave of bispecifics that have come back to the industry pretty hard in the last couple of years. And we believe we can play in that space both as a partner but also as a developer of those type of molecules.
Are there any limitations of the platform when it comes to modalities? You mentioned CAR Ts, T cells there. Are you able to leverage the platform in cell and gene therapies or in any other sort of modalities, for example?
Well, I think some of the aspects or elements of cell and gene therapy is actually one of the challenges as they scale those technologies up are the media components. So those media contain cytokines that they're going to need at large scale. So we're looking at could we potentially make these cytokines in our system as an element of the media and those type of things. But the limitation of the platform is we just don't make glycosylated proteins. So any protein that's not glycosylated is absolutely fair game for the platform, but we specifically would not be in a full-length monoclonal antibody product development. That's really where the limitation lies.
I guess that can play to your and the platform's strength to be able to focus specifically on certain types of modalities and really get those going through the clinic.
That's right. I think that we have really established our focus on these non-glycosylated proteins. We have a full pipeline of products that we're working on, but also looking at, again, novel therapies that are looking at enzyme replacement or bispecifics, these type of things. So binding modalities, but working with platform companies where we can marry up our platform with their platform to enable lead molecules.
So, this seems like a very robust and solid strategy going forward using the technology and focusing in this area. But where do you see Phoenix in, say, 5 or 10 years down the line?
So, again, we have our first approval pending here. Hopefully in the fourth quarter we launch our first commercial product. That those revenues will fuel a novel pipeline. And so, in our hopes is to really have a differentiated portfolio of partnerships and wholly owned molecules that are more in the novel and bio-better space. And that's really the strategy for the company. But I think what we've done in the past 15 years is built a platform, built institutional knowledge around CMC and process development. Now putting an asset or filing this asset in Europe and US has really honed our skills in the regulatory and clinical space. Now we have an infrastructure at Phoenix that includes a platform, a very highly skilled team and infrastructure that basically gives us a license to move to more novel molecules, a little bit higher risk but higher return, and that's really the goal.
Well, Patrick, it's been an absolute pleasure once again to speak to you here, and I look forward to continuing following Phoenix and seeing what the next few developments are, and good luck with the approval later this year.
Thank you, Dan.